In this video, I'm going to tell you about what I think about whether or not Games Workshop's Kill Team is dead, and whether that actually matters. So earlier today, I'm filming this on Thursday, there was another presentation for Warhammer Fest online. So they're doing it, all online this year, obviously still. And on Monday, it was all about Age of Sigmar. Tuesday was about 40K. Wednesday was about Black Library. And then today was all about boxed games, which is kind of what people used to refer to as kind of specialist games. That was kind of a separate division of Games Workshop, blah, blah. Kill Team, Warcry, Necromunda, the airplane game, Aeronauticus, I don't play a kiss. And they also talked about Warhammer Underworlds, that kind of stuff. And then tomorrow, more 40K on Friday, which is when this video goes live. It's time travel. And then on Saturday, it's just question marks. It's a surprise. We don't know. So sat through the presentation. It was maybe 40 minutes or so. They talked about Warhammer Underworlds, new warband for that. They talked about some of the airplane game. They talked a little bit about some cool House to Lock stuff from Necromunda. And they didn't talk about Warcry, which I frankly didn't particularly expect because they've done a lot of Warcry in the last 12 months. But, I was kind of hoping for a little bit Kill Team, a little scotch. Unfortunately, I was left empty-handed. There was no talk at all of anything Kill Team related. Now, I know that people have been talking for quite some time about whether or not Kill Team is dead. It comes up a lot in conversation. Even though they released something at the early part of the year, Pariah Nexus, which frankly didn't help. It had its own troubles, pachow. But there really hasn't been much put out for Kill Team, and so because of that, there's been a lot of talk online about, well, it's dead and this, that, and that other thing. And maybe it is. Maybe. But is it? Like, what does that mean, it's dead? There seems to be a common idea amongst specifically fans of Games Workshop games that if they're not constantly coming out with new stuff all the time, then the game is dead, right? Now, I am not super crazy old school in playing 40K and stuff like that. I started 40K around 5th edition. But even back in 5th edition, which isn't that long ago, I remember when we were lucky to get 3 codices in a year. Like, stuff trickled out. Stuff would trickle out a little bit for 40K, stuff would trickle out a little bit for Warhammer Fantasy. Every once in a great while, they'd release a box game. And, people clamored, people wanted more, but, it was what it was, and that's the way it worked. But I don't know that anybody ever went, oh, man, there's only been 3 codices this entire year for 40K. 40K must be dead. It's just that they ran at the pace that they ran at. And in the last, say, half decade plus, they've obviously increased output. They have been cranking stuff out pretty much on the weekly. Something new comes out. Like, they literally took the end of April off as far as coming out with any new pre-releases or releases. They were like, look, pandemic, lockdowns, all this stuff, things are behind and whatnot, so we're just going to take off like the rest of April, but we'll start up again in May with more stuff. And they had to make an announcement about how they weren't going to release anything for like a couple of weeks. And, and it's not like people gnashed their teeth. People understood, but it was still news that had to be put out there. Whereas back in the day, there was just no news. That's just the way it worked. And the game was going along as it was going along. I'm not going to say it was fine. I personally would like to see something a little bit in between the two. Like, there's so much stuff now versus there being very little stuff back then. I think a happy medium would be great, but I'm getting off track. What about Kill Team? So I've been saying for some time that there is a possibility that they'll release a new edition of Kill Team, potentially sometime in 2021. Maybe in the summer, maybe in the fall. Partially, this is fiscally motivated, in my mind. They want to try to get as much money this year as they got last year with the release of 9th edition and Indominus, which made them a boatload of money, way more probably than they thought. And the way that big business works is that you should never plan to make less this year than you did last year. Even if last year was a crazy fluke, you're always trying to beat last year all the time when you're in real big business, stockholders and all that. So there's a good chance that not only potentially still, maybe, hard to say, are they going to try to release Kill Team 2.0 to try to make some more money, but also I still very strongly think they're going to try to release Age of Sigmar 3.0. That's a totally different video at this point. Now, I understand, as I'm recording this on Thursday and you're potentially watching it on Friday, tomorrow, Saturday, the last day of Warhammer Fest, they've got the question marks there for what the subject of the day is, and we don't know. Very possibly, it could be Kill Team 2.0, Age of Sigmar 3.0, could be a completely new whole... There's a lot of things that could go on. So this could become a video that is particularly not necessarily useful once that announcement comes out. But I think the message is still kind of useful. And the message is this: is it bad with certain games in their line if they just don't release stuff all the time? As was shown in today's video, Necromunda gets a lot more releases than Kill Team. But there's a very good reason that Necromunda does it. And then there's also another reason that I'm maybe guessing at. The good reason that they're getting a lot more releases is because they have things to actually release. You come up with models to play in Necromunda. Kill Team uses 40K models that are already out there in the wild. The Necromunda models are specifically made just for Necromunda, so they can keep cranking out more and more and more models, new different stuff, additions to different houses, mercenaries, this, that, the other thing, all that kind of stuff. Whereas with Kill Team, they don't make models for Kill Team. They make models for 40K. There was one guy for the Adeptus Mechanicus that was in the special launch box. He's kind of a fat kind of guy and stuff like that, and that was the only place you could get him for a while, but I think now you can get him, and I forget his name off the top of my head, but I'll put it maybe on the screen or whatever, I don't know. But generally, they don't make models. They take some of the models that already exist, put them in special boxes and say, here's some cards with this commander, here's some cards with this squad. They even do it with the terrain. But terrain, you can use Necromunda terrain in Kill Team. You can use 40K terrain in Kill Team. The terrain that they come out with for Kill Team is never really actually Kill Team. It can be used in pretty much all of those things. And that's a cool thing. It's nice to have stuff that works double duty, triple duty, etc. But Necromunda makes them more money because they can keep producing new models that people will keep buying. This book is a good starter. It's a good primer. It's a good leap-off point to get into 40K, but it doesn't really make them that much money. One of the reasons it doesn't really make them much money is because, frankly, it doesn't need to. It's a self-contained book. Once you buy this book to get into Kill Team, you got to buy some models, you got to have some terrain, yada, yada. But that's it. Sure, they've come out with, they came out with one, what was it called? Kill Team Annual in 2019. They didn't come out with one in 2020, which I think is a little telling. Pariah Nexus came out with rules for Space Marines and Necrons that you can only get from that book, which comes in a box. You can't buy the book separately. That's all another whole thing. I've already done a chow to that. But really, in the grand scheme of things, there's nothing else much that you need. If you want to go with elites and add some stuff to it, you want to go with commander, you can add some stuff to it. But this book being self-contained, all of the information you need in it is a great thing for us as consumers. It's $40 American. It's not a great thing necessarily for Games Workshop. It's good in that if you are thinking about getting into 40K, this is a great kind of entrance vector to get into it. You don't have to build an entire 2,000 point army. You can build, 10, 15 guys, maybe 8. Depends on the models. Sometimes, my Death Guard is 6 guys, right? You can do that and have a working force and play the game and have a lot of fun with it. And I know the competitive folks are clamoring for a lot of additions and changes and things like that. But for the most part, this game doesn't need constant releases. I don't know that it's dead. If you say that constant releases or lack thereof equals death, well then sure, great, okay, I guess it's dead. But it's still for sale. You can still play it. It's one of those things that, like most games in the tabletop realm, for long, long periods of time, have been things that have been able to be playable for years and years and years without too many updates. And I don't know if this comes from video games or something like that, where, a game can only last for so long before the graphics are incredibly dated, or maybe the servers get shut down and that kind of stuff. But I can play, still, if I'm interested and want to go down that road, I can play first edition 40K Rogue Trader. I own the book. They sold a reprint of the book a number of years ago. I picked it up at Adepticon and it was awesome. And I just wanted it for the history because I'd never had the original. So I really enjoyed it. But it's still playable. It's maybe not great. It's maybe not necessarily what we're used to these days as far as the mechanics and stuff like that. But it's still something a person can sit down and play. And I know there's somebody watching this right now who's like, yeah, me and my 3 friends, we still play 3rd edition, all the time. We don't like any of this new shenanigans or whatever the deal is. I got a friend, we still play 1st edition with Star Wars, X-Wing. We didn't go to 2.0, we just stuck with the one. It's just us, and it's fine. You can't do that in video games. You can't decide to say, I don't like what they changed with the new patch, so I'm just going to use the old version, because then you can't attach to any of the servers or you can't play against other people because they've all updated, and that's kind of the way it works. With these things, you can keep playing this. And again, remember, if there's a rule in here that you don't like or you and your friends don't like it, you can change it. That's the way it works. If you're going to be playing competitively, I understand. Well, I don't. Let me back that up. I understand that there are issues with competitive play in pretty much any kind of game. I don't really understand competitive play. I'm not into it, so I'm not going to really speak to that. But for normal, fun, regular stuff, could this use a better campaign system? Certainly, yeah. But you can also just make up your own campaign system if you want to. You may say, yeah, but I paid $40. Why do I have to make anything up? Well, that's also an answer. But the thing about tabletop games is they give us the freedom to do what we want within the set of rules as long as both people agree. So the big question is, do I think on Saturday they're going to release, or at least tease, that there's going to be a 2nd edition to Kill Team? I'm a little 50-50 on it, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that if we weren't still in kind of pandemic times, I would lean a lot more towards probably. They will kind of at least tease that there's going to be a 2.0 coming out. Games Workshop's having production issues right now, if you haven't noticed. They're having issues because of lockdown and the pandemic, and a lot of companies are, but them being the biggest, theirs are most magnified. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. But if they decide to, all Saturday is just all AOS 3.0, or maybe a potentially new who knows what, I don't know. We don't know what it is, because question marks. If they come out with something that's not Kill Team, am I going to be crushed? No, not at all. To be perfectly honest, I'm a little bit more interested these days in playing, I'm a little bit more interested in Necromunda because I've got more stuff to build for Necromunda. I'm still very interested in playing Kill Team. To my friends that I like to play Kill Team with, I'm still there. I'm still on board. This still works. I've got 7 or 8 completely painted warbands or Kill Teams, whatever, now, and so that's fine. But if you might notice on Twitch, where I stream and paint stuff, I've been predominantly focusing on Warcry lately because I've already got a whole bunch of stuff done for Kill Team, and it'll sit on a shelf, and when I want to use it, I can grab it and play it. And that's what's neat about tabletop games. No tabletop game ever dies. People may on the internet say, well, they stopped supporting it, so it's dead. There's no game that's dead. That's not a thing that happens. You can keep playing a game for as long as you and your friends want to. Will you be able to go to conventions and play in tournaments with that game, the dead version? Dead? Not necessarily, no. Will you be able to pop into your local shop and play a pickup game with a stranger? Yeah, probably not. But you can still teach other people at the local shop how to play that game as long as you've got a force for both. And that's really easy with a game like Kill Team because the forces are so small. I just don't believe in there being a dead game as long as it's been printed and it's still accessible someplace, even if they stop selling it completely. It's no longer on the website. It's no longer an ebook or any of those things. Then it's a little bit more difficult to say whether it's dead or not, because if you can't get it, you can't get it. But if the game is still available to buy, the base core book, but they haven't put anything new out for it, I don't believe a game is dead until you can't find it any place anymore. And there's always eBay. 1, 2, 3, folks.